Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Welcome back to the Daily Truth Report. We have a returning guest that's a favorite of mine and a favorite of many of yours. Bo Polny is back on the show. Bo, I want to welcome you back on. Thanks for being here.
Noah, thank you. Appreciate. Always love speaking with you, and you're a complete joy to speak with. And you're the only news source that I really usually check during the week because there's nothing else to review. And the information you put on your site from the Daily Truth Report and We Love Trump websites, you really got some great information in there. So thank you for what you do as well.
Oh, fantastic! That's really nice to hear that. We picked a great day to do this. I always like to say the day that we're recording this because time is important with what you do and important with the news. So it's Tuesday, May 3rd, that we're recording this show. And boy, oh boy, did we ever pick a perfect day for this, because just last night, some huge news broke about Roe versus Wade. We're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to talk about everything that's happening with the year 1971. You were telling me some of that in the pre-interview before we got started, and I had no idea about some of it. So I can't wait for people to hear about all of the connections back to 1971. And the reason that matters is the 50-year Jubilee cycle. So we've got so many things that are hitting today that you have told us in prior interviews, and we're going to go back and see some of those clips. We're going to see some of those slides, and I'm really excited for people to see what you've been talking about before, and wow, what a perfect day to have this interview. So there's your little teaser. We're going to get into all of that here in just a minute. But for anybody that doesn't know Bo, he's an analyst of time. So some people analyze charts, some people analyze the news, and Bo analyzes the cycles of how time repeats and the seasons and everything like that. The Bible says everything has a time and a season, and the stars and tell time and tell seasons. And so what he does is very biblical, and he studies the biblical patterns, and then he overlays them to our world today, both in terms of news and stock market and crypto market and everything else in gold and silver. So we love talking with Bo. He's been on CNBC before. He's several times, in fact. He's all over YouTube. He's been viewed. I like to say he's been viewed 5 million times on YouTube, but I think that's an old stat. It's probably close to 10 or 15 million times on YouTube now. When he first started coming on our show, I looked back at my notes today. Bitcoin was $14,000. And if you follow that, it's up in the high 30s, close to 40,000 right now. And we're going to talk about that later too. So, Bo, I'm just about ready to turn it over to you, but I just get so excited to look back sometimes at my notes, and I look at some of the things you said. You very famously said back in 2020 that everybody better watch September 18th. Because something big was going to happen. And if that date doesn't jump out to you, I'm sure you remember what happened. It was the night that suddenly the news broke at about 8 p.m. that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died. And then the Supreme Court changed forever. And we're going to talk about that. But that is absolutely a historic call that you had made. And it's affecting everything that's happening literally today on May 3rd. So I'm so excited to talk about it all. I'm going to let you kind of guide us in the right direction. And I'm going to put your slides up here on the screen, and I'm going to let you go. So take it away, Bo.
Thanks, Noah. Yeah, no, seriously, what have we said over and over in our interviews, Noah? We live in historic times. We live in, more importantly, biblical times, right? And so everything that's happening is biblical. And so this event that just went down today, Roe v. Wade, like I went back and I pulled up a couple of my old interviews that I did from 2020, and it's mind-boggling how it's all playing out like incredibly perfect. So we can play some of that later, but really the essence of it, God's in control of everything going on in this world. And what we're waiting for is this moment in time where everything suddenly changes. We've talked about the word suddenly before, but remember, our God is a God of suddenly. If you remember the presentations of past, how long does God need to make an incredible shift within our world? How long does things take biblically, or with God involved? It's a one-day event. So as crazy, as wild as the world is right now, wow, Noah, just like the events that are transpiring now, like I am so excited. When I heard Roe v. Wade announcement yesterday, I'm like, that was truly awesome. I was so excited because that one event, it's like when, we talked past of August 24th, and no one paid attention to the fact that Russia and Saudi Arabia signed a military pact. And I'm like, you don't understand how huge this is going to play in to the future of what's about to happen to the US dollar. And we know we've already seen a whole bunch of events transpire with Russia and the dollar, and now selling oil for rubles. And so it's that point in time, I made a huge stink about it because I knew how powerfully important that time point was. So just like Roe v. Wade right now being overturned, it's biblically important because this one event, this one single event of Roe v. Wade that's about to be overturned, and they made the announcement and it came out 5-4. Well, not so much an announcement, but the paper,
the leak,
the leak. Now again, it was intentional, but the 5-4 would never have happened if the event of September 18th, Rosh Hashanah 2020, didn't happen. So God is lining up all, he's playing incredible chess and he's lined everything up. And so this one event is now going to cause that first domino to go down. And remember, when one domino goes down, it's going to be a whirlwind of dominoes that are going to follow shortly thereafter. So this year is going to be hugely historic. The world's never going to forget the year 2022. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, Bo, you hit on something that really jumped out to me. You said everything, and you've been saying everything is going to happen suddenly in a day. And I think this is just the start of it. What we saw last night, it's certainly not everything. It's the first domino, like you say. But when I saw that news come out last night, it hadn't been building for weeks. Now I know the case has, but it just popped up on the screen. Boom, overturned. And I think that's the way it's going to feel. We're just going to see these things popping up, and things that I honestly, I know you've been saying it was going to happen, but I wasn't convinced we'd ever see it. I didn't think we'd ever see that overturned. And then sure enough, it pops up on the screen last night that it's happening. So it kind of feels like we're going to start seeing a bunch of those. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, exactly. Yes and no. I think we're going to keep seeing more and more things come to light, and we'll talk about that. But the reason it's like I say, the more and more come to light. Think about this, right? So since Christmas of 2021, the winter solstice, since that time point, every single day is getting a little bit more light. So I've talked about this, on our interviews in the past. But what does light do to darkness? It basically puts a spotlight on things that were done in the dark. So what you're seeing is all these truths are starting, like these little things that start to creep out, pop out. So it's both. So we're going to see little things keep popping up because every day is there's a little bit more light. But ultimately, we're going to get into a day. There's going to be one day, starting somewhere here in May, I believe, anywhere on or after May 14th, into the longest day of the year in terms of light, which is the 21st of June. That's a summer solstice, right? So anywhere between May 14th into the summer solstice, expect there to be like that moment in time where just mind-blowing, mind-boggling amount of suddenly like information comes out that just cannot be stopped, that literally it causes people to mind, to have breakdowns because they come to realize of the truths that finally get exposed, and they're huge. So I think we're going to keep trickling effect, and then this massive event. And that kind of ties in with, page 1 of the presentation, which, a friend of mine, I think one of an incredibly powerful prophet, Lois Vogel Sharp, her words were very simple. The land will rumble. Well, what is God? When God shows up, read the Bible. Anytime God shows up, there's earthquakes, there's things popping off. Okay. The land shakes. So, so expect the land to rumble, because when I say, I don't mean God, Jesus Christ is showing up, manifesting yet on earth, but there's going to be a moment in time where God's going to show up, meaning like with regard to biblical worldly events are about to start popping off all over the world, causing the land to rumble. And then evil will suddenly crumble. And now we're going to get this, the birth that we've been talking about of this new era. So I know, Noah, I've been waiting. Okay, not only the viewers, we've all been waiting. I know you've been waiting. We're all waiting. But as much as we wait and we're like, God's late. No, God's not late. We were early. God's timing is perfect, and we're always trying to decipher God's timing. And so, all I can tell you, we've talked to the protractor of time that we've looked at as well too. And you'll recall going back all the way to I think it was last July, or not even that. I think it was like last May. Last May, how we've talked about, this is going to be an entire 12-month cycle that takes us into May of this year. And Noah, it's May 3rd today. Okay, so we are.
It's time.
Yeah, it's time. It's time for historic and biblical. It's all I can say. Historic and biblical. We are here. This is the time. So, we can start on the presentation. Page 2, as we've talked about. In the past, those that go to restaurants now, you take your phone out, you scan it on that QR code, and voila, you got the whole menu. In this case, you're going to get the whole PDF.
And this PDF, I always say you need to grab this, and you really do. So I'll put the link down below the video. If you want to just click the link, that's fine too. Or if you want to shoot your phone at this QR code, it's going to download this entire presentation. It's like 137 slides. It's awesome as always. And give it some time. It actually takes, I have fast internet here, and it takes a while to fully download because there's so many big pictures and it's really long. So go ahead and grab this and follow along. We're going to cover maybe a fourth of it today, but there's a lot of other stuff in here that I think you'll have a lot of fun paging through. So grab that, or look down below the video wherever you're watching this, on YouTube or Rumble or wherever. I'll have the link for you where you can get these slides. They're free. Bo puts a lot of time into these and really appreciate it. So make sure you grab that, and you can keep it and read it whenever you want.
Exactly. A lot of the presentation, we're going to talk today specifically focus on present time. We're going to talk about, also some historic time points. So we're not going to go too much into the future because we're at such a critical pivotal time point right now. So I really want to focus on present day, and how May, June time window here is so historically, and from a cycle standpoint, is expected to be incredibly important and powerful. So, we've talked about in the past, and we've talked in the past about how important and how similar historic cycle, the 400-year cycle of Israel and Egypt, is to present day. And so that relates to Moses and Israel. So if on page 4, when you look at that, you have to understand, on November of 1620, the Mayflower landed. Well, guess what happened exactly 400 years later? Corona. Okay, so the world as you knew it changed forever. The first seal opened. So we are in the completion of 400 years. We're at 400 years, period. And at the 400-year mark is when Israel was freed from Pharaoh's bondage.
Okay, so that's why that's important. That's the 400 years.
Exactly. It's 400 years. So after 400 years, Israel was released from slavery, from bondage. Well, yeah, but how does that relate to present day? We're not in bondage. Oh, really? Okay. Why don't you Google the word mortgage?
Yes.
The translation for mortgage is death grip. Google death grip and mortgage. Put that together. You'll see that comes up. It's a death grip. So what's happened is, in the time of Pharaoh in Israel, you had chains. It was real obvious you're a slave. Okay. What did Satan do this time? He got a little smarter. Okay. Rather than actually giving us chains, he basically made us think we're free. But every single day you wake up, you go to work to pay your death grip.
Right.
To pay your $200,000 student loan, of which you make $80,000 a year. By the time you pay all your overhead each year, you've got about $10 left. So that $200,000 basically has enslaved you for the next for the next half of your life to try to pay off that mortgage, for that student loan. So it's all about having humanity enslaved. So
what's even worse, Bo? Even if you pay off your house or you pay off your cars, you got to continue to pay taxes just for the right to live in a house that you own, or a car that you own free and clear.
That's correct, because if you don't pay your taxes on that property, they'll still come take it from you. So you're
the
never
whole
free.
system.
Yeah, you're never free of Babylon, period. So even if you pay your house off, okay, well, that's at least like it takes a lot of stress off, but ultimately you're still in Babylon. Okay,
Yes,
because they still
yes,
control you. They still technically, they own your house, and so when you start studying all this, not own your house, but they have own the land on. If you don't pay the property taxes, well, they're going to come say hello and take your property, because it's all
right.
about control, 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 control. What is Babylon? It's a control system to control humanity. Period. That's all it is. It's a control system of humanity. It's been going on for 2,500 years, since the time of Daniel, who gave the prophecy or the revelation of the Daniel 2 prophecy, to give the revelation of the dream actually to Nebuchadnezzar. You go to the next slide. Ultimately, we talk about the moment in time. We go to page 5. I've read this numerous times on your show. I'm just going to read the last line, because this directly relates to present day. 2022, this year, okay, will end up being what's the last line of Isaiah 61. It says this: the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God. So we are about to see our God, because our God is two things: Jesus Christ, God the Father, the Holy Spirit, is the Trinity. It's two things. He's love. We know that, okay? It's all about love. Love thy neighbor. It's all about love. Love God, your Father. It's all about, the world is all about, he created us because he loves us. And the reason everything exists, because he loves us. So it's all about love. But at some point in time, God has to come out and judge. And even these evil ones that did all that they did, okay, he created them, so he still loves them. But the point is, God loves the sinner, hates the sin, but at some point he has to judge. And so these people are about to see the judgment of God. Oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible for them. This is going to be absolutely horrible for them, for the ones that went against God. They mocked God, and they just been doing, and they what's, like Pharaoh, he buckled down his heels and he refused to repent. And so these people are no different. And so we are now, heading into that Daniel moment in time. Next slide is Daniel. God only needs one day. And this is really powerful too. And all men are powerless if the prophecy is true. So they can do everything they want. They can try to change time, speed up time, whatever they've been trying to do, but they're powerless, because this Daniel 2 prophecy, it's true, and they're powerless against it. So you go to the next slide, you'll see Daniel, the statue of Daniel. Again, we talked about it, these kingdoms of Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, papacy. It's all about control. It's all about control. Controlling humanity. You go to the next slide on 8, and the statue stands. There's numerous statues all around the world, and they just mock us with their statues. But they're just basically letting us, it's like this little communication that Babylon still stands, and they trick us to believe that it's a Statue of Liberty, or it's supposed to, all hail liberty. But in reality, it's exact opposite. So when you start doing the research on this stuff, you go to the next slide. Babylon is, Babylon the Great. It's the harlot. And so we're about to see the fall of the harlot. So the fall of the harlot is discussed in Revelation 17 and 18. The fall of the harlot is no different than what's discussed in Daniel 2:34. What does this Daniel 2:34 state? And as you look, the stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image at its feet of iron and clay and broke them to pieces. And that took down the statue, and that ultimately takes down the statue of Babylon. There are several prophets that have already prophesied, again, because I do time calculations, not events, but several prophets have already prophesied that the Statue of Liberty is going down. Okay, so it makes sense, because that would correlate to Daniel 2:34. That would correlate to the fall of the harlot. Interestingly enough, there's a link that people can click. It says May 2022 meteor shower.
Yes, right here.
You don't declare, but you can click that later on. It's very fascinating. But in this month of May, we're supposed to have a meteor shower. I don't know, but the stone carved out by no human hand. I don't know. Find it kind of interesting. So we'll see what happens here as May progresses.
Wow.
I'm wondering if the meteors hit, what they're going to hit exactly. We will have to see. But the timing of this of the meteor shower is is interesting. That's all I can say. The next slide takes us to the harlot sitting on the beast, and her death is expected this year, 2022. And so if you read it, a woman, I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads represent the 7 mountains or the 7 hills of which the woman is seated. And we've talked about this again. This is a repeat, but basically the financial system, Babylon, who created the money system to enslave humanity. What do they do with all the money? When you have an infinite ability to create money as much as you want, guess what? Everything and everybody's got a price. And so they bought the churches, the families, the education system, the government, the entertainment, media. Turn your TV on. All it is just, it's just scripts and scripts and scripts that they're reading. And it's all done because they had an infinite amount of money to control humanity. And that's the essence of what's going on. Next slide takes us to a very powerful time point. The BRICS nations. I find they actually interesting. Someone actually, I posted this, I forget where I saw it, but BRICS, what's a brick? It's a, technically you can consider it a rock, right?
Right.
Kind of interesting, right? How a rock's supposed to take down Babylon, BRICS. The whole thing's kind of cool. How it's like all these little pieces that just seem to make perfect sense. So the BRICS nations, well, you see what's happening right now with Russia and the SWIFT system, and the oil, and how you can buy oil now in the ruble, which I've always said, that's an act of war. You sell anything outside of, for oil outside of the US dollar, that's always been an act of war. And what did they just do? They just attacked Russia. They blew up 2 oil refineries. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically the BRICS nations are prophesied. When I read Revelation 17:17, I believe my understanding that I got is the BRICS nations, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, they're going to come together as one. So it says, for God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind. And so I believe that this is about to happen. We're going to see the BRICS nations come against the global elite. And so we're going to see fireworks. So we haven't seen anything yet. May is going to be fascinating to see what happens. The fall of the dollar is going to be.
Bo, as you're talking about the BRICS and the stone and everything, you're probably familiar with Kim Clement. He had that famous prophecy line about prophecy about it'll be a simple stone.
Yeah, and his words were, and he will raise a simple stone.
Yes.
And he will raise a simple stone, and they will laugh at him. That's what.
Yes, right. That must fit right in here.
Right, and also the other prophecy of Kim Clement. Kim Clement was incredible, right? Another word that he said was, and the brothers of Goliath stand in glee. Okay, so what is Goliath? The statue of Babylon. Okay, it's a Daniel 2 prophecy. That's Babylon, right? So that's it's an image of Goliath. It's a giant, basically. Okay, and so the brothers, these are the brothers. So that's the brothers of Goliath. Stand in glee. Yeah. We will destroy your credit system. And so we're about to see that was prophesied. That's exactly what his words were. And so when the world reserve currency loses its status as the world reserve currency, then we're going to see a sudden event, a shift to hyperinflation. So we're only seeing inflation. We haven't seen hyperinflation yet. So hyperinflation, by definition, if you look back historically, all these nations that have fallen, the last thing that happens is they start to print money like crazy before the nation falls. And so, so hyperinflation is like the doubling of imported commodities, of prices in a matter of days, sometimes hours.
It's like that red arrow on the screen right there.
Yeah. And so on the next slide, you'll see that. You'll see how on the slide 13, you'll see the hyperinflation, how goods were doubling. Some goods would double in 15 days, some in 4 days, some in 5 days, some in 15 hours.
Yeah. So some people are trying to tell us we've seen the worst of it, but you're saying it's going to get a lot more worse before it gets better.
Well, yeah, because we haven't seen the fall of the dollar. The dollar drop is the takedown of Goliath. Okay. And so the dollar, this world reserve currency, I'm not saying, the best way I can say this is the dollar was created by man initially as a good resource because you could drop a piece of gold off at the bank and get paper which is more fungible, means you can break it up into smaller pieces to go buy things with. And then you get to also take the paper back to the bank and get some gold or silver back. So that's how it originally started. But once they detached it from gold, they had the ability to create it. Once it's no, actually, this way to describe it, once it's no longer attached to gold, it has no correlation to gold, it becomes satanic money because it has no correlation to God's money. It's completely void of God. It has nothing to do with God. So therefore it becomes satanic. And so that is essence what's happened is they basically created a money system that has nothing to do with God. And I can't describe it any more plain than that.
Yeah, that's really good. Hey,
And
look,
so,
look at that on the screen. $100 trillion. Looks like some stones.
yeah. And so so just expect world financial shifts that are about to happen here. Page 14 takes us to where we are now in terms of biblical timing. We're supposed to see this very powerful event here, the third seal, which is also, we talked about the fall of the statue of Daniel, which is also the fall of Babylon. So all of this correlates to Bible to believe to be the same event in time. May, I believe, is triggering month, so very powerful. But I want to finish that, continue that into the next slide, like you're just saying, page 14, page 15, is that talks about the fourth seal. Remember, as great and as much of the celebrations that we're about to experience and see, and historic things are about to happen, we're still in end times, and that's going to then ultimately, because remember the four horsemen of Revelation, this event's about to happen is the third, and then in several years from now, we're going to see the fourth horseman of Revelation, which is plague and pestilence. So don't think that this is all, the celebrations that come and it's all over. No. We're going to have a window of grace. God's going to give us a window of grace, but then it's going to get time. Then it's going to become time to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, the next slide talks about, ultimately our goal is to separate ourselves from the system. Okay. And so the way I can describe that is we are the wheat, evil is the tares. We rise together at end times, but we don't rise interlaced as one. Does that get it? So the goal is to grow, to rise separately. And so that's how this is ultimately going to play out as we head into the future. We've talked before, page 17, with regard to the center of end times. Not going to cover that, but just study that and you'll understand what I'm saying there. If you go to slide 18, this is important now because slide 18 correlates to slide 17 and before that, which talked about May 26th being the center of end times. So we've done the whole loop. At the very top up there, August 24th, that was powerful because that was when Saudi Arabia signed a military contract with Russia, but they already had one with the United States. So why did they do that? Because 9 days earlier, the United States just happened to abandon Kabul and billions of dollars of equipment, and people just abandoned. So Saudi Arabia is like, I don't think so. We are like, that is why they signed a military contract. And I made a huge deal about that because that ultimately is going to lead to the demise of the world reserve currency, the US dollar. And sure enough, if you look at August 24th, you draw a line straight down, you get to February 24th at the very bottom there. So what happened? On that exact day, Russia and Ukraine, the crisis began, the military conflict. Wow. Exactly 30 days later. So you got August 24th, February 24th, March 24th. On March 24th, precisely what happened is Putin demands payment for gas and oil in the ruble. So exactly 30. And then the next one was April 24th. So 30 days, so another 24. This 24 is very powerful because you have to understand the 1-2-4 timeline that we talked about in the past. So 24 is a very key date biblically. I don't know why, but it's always playing out. So on April 24th, I was saying that's going to be important. On our last interview, we actually said April 24th, something's going to happen. Nothing. And all of a sudden, just before the late evening, you got a whole bunch of emails, posts that went out on the internet, and boom, what happened? Russia gets attacked. Two huge oil refineries get massive explosions. And what a little more research now recently, I find out that there was 2 drone attacks, I believe is what it was. So Russia has never been attacked in, I don't know how long, since probably World War II. We just attacked Russia. Why would that have happened? Oh, maybe because they're selling oil in the ruble, which is backed by gold. You see what I'm saying? This is getting very, very interesting. So now that takes us all the way up to 360 degrees, which just takes us into May 21st. And potentially even maybe May 24th is going to be historic as well. But all I know from a cycle time point, May from a birth standpoint is very, very powerful. So we are talking about when heading, and we've talked about this, heading into a birth. We've talked about slide 19 in the past as well, how every 40 years, there's two things historically have happened: a huge crash, a sizable crash, and also a military conflict. So this year, do expect a large stock market crash this year, 2022. But the stock market crash, and this is really important, page, the next one, I want to talk about this for a few minutes, page 20. The stock market crash that's going to happen this year is necessary. The collapse will be the victory needed to stop the furthering of this evil regime. That's a prophetic word, but again, by Lois. So the point being is the Great Awakening is then going to follow. So you're going to see a massive collapse. Everything goes dark. Historic events are going to transpire. And then as the lights come back on, the new era, the awakening, the new era is here. So this year, it's going to be awesome. We've talked about time in terms of when you look at the light, okay, every day it's getting lighter. And so, we're at May 3rd today, with the brightest day of the year being June 21. So do the math. There is so little time left for absolutely mind-boggling historic things to go down. And so, yeah, you're on the next slide here. This is really powerful. Year 50, when you read the Bible, there's a line in there called, it's Leviticus. And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all of its inhabitants. You'll notice this correlates when you read all the things of what a Jubilee is. This is a Jubilee. It's a release. The simplest definition of a Jubilee, it's a freedom or a release from bondage. But we're not in bondage. Okay, we talked about that. Yes, we are. Okay, we are in bondage. We just don't know it. Israel knew. Satan just got a little smarter this time. So no different than what happened in the time of Pharaoh in Israel. We are sitting at a 400-year cycle for release from bondage. And now, on top of the 400 years, this is where it gets really interesting, because the 400-year mark is powerful. But then when you layer in the Leviticus cycle talks about 50 years. Well, what do you mean 50 years? Well, let's talk about that, okay? Because on the next slide, slide 22.
And this is where it gets really good. So I'm excited to go through this, Bo.
Right. So this is the power. This is the power. This is the main point of today's interview. How powerful a time point this is, because remember, we're looking for the birth of a new era. And more importantly, is we're in the 50-year mark, and we're talking about Leviticus. So if there was one thing that the world could do to hurt or disappoint God, like the worst thing you could do to God is to kill his creation. He created us in his image, and we turn around and allow abortion to kill his creation. So I've repeated this before, and you will play it on the interview, but I on this little 2 or 3 minute clip that we have. But this is the essence of it. When we turned our back on, when we allowed abortion, God turned his back on the United States and allowed the evil to flourish, to allow them to take God out of the church, just to do everything, to print all this money, to enslave us. So the last 50 years, God, in essence, has turned his back on us. And now we're at a critical time point. So if there's one thing, Noah, if there's one thing we could do to gain favor back from God, what would it be?
Reverse this case.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
This will be landmark. This thing that just happened with them leaking it out, but the point is, by overturning Roe v. Wade, like I said, this moment in time right here, this event will go down in history that marked the change of everything going forward, because now the Creator, he's going to the Isaiah 61, right? The year of Lord's favor and the day of vengeance. These people are going to experience the vengeance of God. If God was going to unleash vengeance on them, when would it be? Well, if we show favor to God and overturn Roe v. Wade, he's going to come through for his bride to be, and he's going to unleash, and we are going to see historic events go down.
And the timing is just incredible. So I want people to see this slide on slide 22. This has been in your prior presentations. People can go back. All of our interviews are posted, and all of your slide presentations, links to those are below all of our prior videos. You're going to find a slide just like slide 22 in a lot of those going back. And I want you to see down here at the bottom, it says Roe versus Wade will be repealed in 2021 or 2022. Bo has been telling us that for a long time, several months, probably a couple years now at this point. He keeps telling us that, and I have to admit, I wasn't sure that we would see it. I mean, it sounds great and it's exciting, but I mean that is a major uphill battle. And then all of a sudden last night, the news broke. And so, Bo, I want to jump over and show this short clip now. This is a 2-minute clip of you on Greg Hunter's show and a couple other shows.
Yeah, it was with Greg Hunter, and then it was also, I believe, I know every time this is funny, every time I go to the Reawaken America tour, you got to go to those tours. Those tours are awesome. So I'm on the Reawaken America tour, and I'm like, every time I'm like, Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned this year. And I've been saying this last year, and everybody's like, Clay actually called me this morning. He goes, it's crazy because you keep saying that, and then people are like, why does he say that? How does he even know? And then today he calls me and goes, man, I'm so happy that I have you on my tour.
Well, it really had not been getting, obviously the case has been argued to the Supreme Court and has been sitting there, but it has not been getting any attention. I mean, no one has been talking about it. We haven't really been covering it. And then boom, all of a sudden last night, the news breaks. Here's the story that we published. We published it 21 hours ago. And just, it was such an incredible story. A lot of times you see stuff and they end up being fake and fake news and stuff that's just not true at all. It's just a rumor about someone's been hauled off to Gitmo, and it kind of felt like that for a second, but it's real. And then the news broke today that the Chief Justice Roberts, he basically confirmed it's real, and he's out trying to find who the leaker is. So it's basically been confirmed as real. Absolutely stunning. But here's the better part. I want to play this video. It's 2 minutes.
And look at and also just when you watch the video, look at the date. It was October of 2020. It was a month after Ginsburg died. This is what was said, and it actually happened today. So go ahead.
These are a bunch of different clips, some older, some newer, and Bo's right. Look at all the dates on these, because he's been, for everyone who's saying nothing's happening, just watch this. Let's play it.
Something big is going to happen. And the 18th, and he wrote this on his website, will not disappoint. Some event's going to happen on the 18th of September. Well, at about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the snarky emails and the snarky comments started rolling on. Bo Pony, something was going to be big happening on the air. Well, it didn't happen until about 8 o'clock, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Would not disappoint. What's the significance of Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying on September 18th, Bo Pony?
Talk about a big event. The Supreme Court of the United States is now short one judge. That Supreme Court justice is going to change dramatically the events of the future. So when that position is filled, you will find that the things that have been holding the world back, that have been basically an abomination to God, are going to soon be changed. And that directly relates to Roe versus Wade. So because we turned our back to God 50 years ago by destroying his creation.
Abortion.
So that's abortion. So because we allowed this, God turned this is why this happened, Greg. Because We turned our back to God 50 years ago for allowing abortion, the destruction of his creation. So God turned his back on us for 50 years and allowed the harlot to gain control.
I wanted to have a bill in
But because
California.
it's 50 years now, God's now going to intervene, and it's the Leviticus time point. Go ahead.
You were talking about Rosh Hashanah. That it was a day that you said, I don't know
Ginsburg
what's going to
died.
happen, but it's going to be epic. And I mean, people write me, look, when nothing happened, at 4 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, and then at 8:30 it announced, yes, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, has died. And it's just like, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, right? She basically underpinned the abortion.
Right, because then Amy's going to come up to be a very, very good soul, and she's then going to rule in favor of she's then going to rule against Roe v. Wade, and so all of this was in God's plan. Because he put it all together from the beginning. He put the end together. He knew the end at the beginning.
Roe v. Wade is going down this year.
February 22.
50 years ago,
March.
Abortion was argued between the Supreme Court. Abortion's going down.
That's so good, Bo. And of course, we know the fight's not over. They leaked.
Oh
that
no,
because
they're now it's
trying
federal
to-
riots. Yeah, so
Yes.
riots coming this week, and guaranteed we're gonna have riots, whether this week and next few days. But riots are gonna break out. It's gonna get crazy. If you look at right behind me, the sign. Actually, if you want to, if you can zoom out for a second, I wrote this, or actually, what's in there? It says economic collapse, chaos, riots. That's right above my head. It's written right there. The point being is these riots are all going to break out right now. Why? Because of what just happened. This is historic. This was so important for the evil ones to maintain in Roe v. Wade. And the critical thing was the death of Ginsburg. Again, I want to repeat, the death of Ginsburg, if she was still in office today, right, it would be 5-4 to not repeal Roe v. Wade. Get it?
Yes.
So the fact that she died on Rosh Hashanah, and I said flat out, her death, whoever's going to replace her is going to vote in favor of Roe v. Wade. And boom, Amy voted in favor. So it still stayed 5-4. It just God wins.
Yes, and incredible, Bo. And so this is the 50 years. The 50 years dates back to 1971. But there's even more about that 50 years that you were telling me that was blowing my mind. So walk us through some of that. There's a lot that happened in 1971.
Yeah, so 71 was rather historic because if you go to the next slide, that's also the same year that Nixon took us off the gold standard. So Nixon, what does he do? He severs a link between the dollar and gold, allowing them to create money to infinity. Guess what they've done? Printed money to infinity, okay? But the other cool thing is Klaus Schwab, okay? You can check this out, but Klaus Schwab, I haven't made a slide for it yet, but Klaus Schwab actually founded the World Economic Forum in 71, which basically has Gates in there and Trudeau and all these crazy people.
When you told me that, Bo, I did Google it because I had to check it out. And look at this, everybody. World Economic Forum, January 1971, founded.
Isn't that
you can't
crazy?
make this stuff up. Incredible.
So this is it. So because of abortion, because of the money system, because of the World Economic Forum, see, what I want your viewers to understand and grasp, please listen, what you need to grasp from what I'm saying is that the fact that Roe v. Wade, what just happened with it, okay, that confirms, I want to repeat, that confirms that we are in presently, the 50-year Jubilee. Thou shalt consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land. The Jubilee doesn't end until September, I think, 26th of 2022. So it's a whole year from September to September. It's God's year from Rosh Hashanah to the end of to the next Rosh Hashanah. So we are in the 50-year moment right now. This is it. And the fact that we just saw what's happened with the abortion. Next, we're going to see the other two things come apart. You're going to see the financial system come apart. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. This is the wealth transfer, Proverbs 13:22. Why? Because it's 50 years of them taking us off the gold standard. So we're going to see the gold standard come back in 2022 because abortions going to be repealed. You know, the Roe v. Wade gets overturned this year, as we just saw. And by, you know, the next few days, few weeks, how this ever plays out, whatever it is, abortion is going to be overturned in the Supreme Court. The financial system is going to be overturned on its head. And so is Klaus Schwab and his World Economic Forum. So all the events of 71 get flipped on their head, just like Jesus Christ walking into the temple and flipping the tables on the money changers. Okay. This is going to be awesome, Noah. So as crazy as long as we've waited, you know, God needs a day, and we are stepping into that time point. So if you go to the next slide here, 25, you know, we're getting into that time point. Rosh Hashanah, September 6th, you start your clock because that was God's day one. 9 months later takes us, the 9th month starts on May 5th and goes to June
9
6th.
months? Why 9 months?
Childbirth.
Yes.
Okay, good question. Yeah, childbirth. So we're talking the birth of a child. Right? Why would the birth of a child be any different than the birth of an era? You know, it's the same concept. It's the creator, right? We're using his cycle. His cycle of time is 9 months. You know, you can go look at the next slide. You know, you're talking vortex math. Nikolai Tesla, not this other guy, okay? Nikolai Tesla created anti-gravity. You know, that's why they wanted to shut him up. He could run a whole city on 2 cents a year. What did he do? He used vortex math technology, okay? What is vortex math? It's God's math, period. Wow. It's God's math. And so, and then that's why pregnancy has 3 trimesters, right? So so it would have been November. You can see big things happen in November. Another big things happen in February. And now look at pivotal month. It's the 9th month, pivotal month. And boom, on the 2nd, it starts. You know, with what just happened with the Roe v. Wade. Okay.
Yes.
So we are there we are. We are May 2022, the 9th month, the pinnacle of the math calculations. We are here. And so, you know, the next slide, you can, you know, expect things to go dark. These evil ones, they're not going to go down without a fight. I promise you, it's going to get wild now, because these, you know, you pin a wild beast up against the wall, you know, and he's going to fight for his life. And it is a fight to, you know, fight to the death here. So it's going to get crazy. But next slide takes us into the Passover. We've talked about the April 24th time point. You know, that's when the 2 strikes happened on Russia. And then remember what happened. What did Pharaoh do? He released Israel, but then he changed his mind and he went and chased them to the Red Sea. It takes about 20 to 25 days to get to the Red Sea. So that takes us to May 14th. So May 14th is a very pivotal and important date. What happens? I got no idea. I'm just doing the math for you, okay? So if you go to the next slide, May 29th, I'm sorry, slide 29. So May 14th is very, very important with regards to time. It's also, we talked about this before, 888 months. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity, and then 8 represents Jesus. And then there's 8 people who stepped off the ark into a new era. 888 months just happens to be May 14th. So I'm just doing math calculations for you and telling you May 14th is a powerful time point. What happened in Exodus? Go to the next slide. You know, this is worth reading. Exodus 14. And Moses said to the people, because what? They were pinned up against the Red Sea. To the left and right, or east and west of them, were mountains. Behind them is the Red Sea, and in front of them, Pharaoh's coming at them with chariots and swords to kill them. And what did Moses say? Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the present day, okay, for the Egyptians, but in this case, it's present day. These people are looking at the present day Egyptians, whom you see before you. Soon you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you. So this is going to be a biblical battle. This is God intervening for his bride to be. So we are about to see historic intervention, or not even historic, biblical intervention by God the Father and his Son Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. But we're going to see biblical things go down. Next slide takes us to the Exodus. And the whole point being, again, is, stand firm. and the timeline on 32. So this is like the ultimate time window you can look at, the viewers can look at. But basically, May 14th through June 6th, just numerous calculations upon calculations. But basically, May 14th just happens to be, again, God works on his feast. So May 14th just happens to be, second Passover. Coincidence? No, there are no coincidences. Okay, so May 14th Passover, second Passover. We've got taking out other calculations you can look at, and then we can go all the way to June 6th. June 6th just happens to be, Pentecost. It happens to be also D-Day. A mother gives birth in 9 months, but precisely 40 weeks. June 6th, again, 777 days from oil going to zero or negative 38. June 6th. It's freaky. Okay, that's all I can tell you. The math calculations are freaky. I'm telling you that there's going to be a birth of a new era, and what's about to be is coming is going to be historic. Page 33. I've talked about this on Greg Hunter before, I believe on your show as well too. Okay, on page 33, what a biblical covenant is. A biblical covenant is when God has a covenant with man. So God has a covenant, with the United States. We were founded under God. And so even though we, man, have turned away from the covenant, it's forever. God has a covenant with the United States. So God will restore the covenant. So we are at May, June. So if you look at I have a road there, basically, we went in the wrong direction. And for a season, evil had a little party going on over there. But that season that evil was given by God gave evil the opportunity to repent. And now all seeds are sown, and now everyone will reap what they have sown. So those who have sown evil seeds are going to witness, or they're going to experience Isaiah 61. The year of the Lord's favor, the day of Lord's vengeance. Okay, so they're about to experience the vengeance of God. This is going to be, horrible for them. And on the other side, those who have planted good seeds are going to reap massive rewards and more so blessings. Okay.
Yeah, this is so great, Bo, because it almost feels irredeemable at this point. Like we couldn't possibly climb out of,
because we're pinned up against the Red Sea.
Yeah,
like you're pinned up against sea, like Israel, right? You're basically, in another interview, I used the word screwed, right? Israel was screwed. I'm sorry from the French if you don't like the word, but unfortunately it's a good description, right? Israel was screwed. They had nothing. They were basically finished. Pharaoh was about to kill them, and then God showed up.
Yes. Well, that's it. That is great. That is exactly what people need.
And then Google also fraud vitiates everything.
Yes.
Okay. So from January 6th, every single piece of paper that this fake presidency signed will become null and void. It's a Supreme Court ruling that from when the fraud is not from when it's discovered, so they can discover it, say if the fraud is discovered today, right?
Right.
It's not from the fraud is discovered. You go back to the point the fraud occurred, and everything becomes null and void.
Wow, that's great. So even this new Supreme Court justice could be removed.
Everything that his pen touched becomes null and void. Fraud, it's a Supreme Court ruling. I don't know the exact ruling, but it's called fraud vitiates everything. And so everything will be wiped out. What was touched, every piece of paper that was touched by this fake presidency. So historic coming. And then lastly, we can talk about here, a couple slides, is 34. This one's great. Why don't you do this and read what eagle molting is, because you're going to love this.
Okay. When eagles become old, their feathers, beak, and claws start withering. They need to transform themselves so they can live longer. Therefore, they undergo molting. And to be safe from predators, they choose a secure valley, Mar-a-Lago, to start this process. As eagles cannot hunt during this time, they are dependent on their brothers and sisters for food. The word. Eagles that survive this gruesome transformation emerge stronger, fitter, and sharper than before. Boy, that is so true. We have been looking at Trump at these rallies. he looks younger, he looks quicker, he looks healthier, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Yes, he
Yes.
does. Yes, he does. And then what did Kim Clement? He's gonna come in a whatever the first part of it was, but he's gonna leave the office, leave the presidency for a second term, a praying president.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is biblical stuff we're watching. We are watching biblical events transpire right in front of our eyes. So people, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the view. This is historic. When the financial collapse occurs, and this crazy stuff goes down, you have one job, is to fall to your knees and thank God for saving America. Because when the 45, then the whole point is he's not allowed to come back until God acts. Because if God doesn't act, if he came back, 45 came back today, it'd be the same thing. Impeach, 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 impeach. The point is God has to take down. The Red Sea must close on their heads.
Yes.
They must be biblically, however this is going to play out, whatever the biblical events are on these people's heads is supposed to happen.
Wiped out.
Then on the other side of the Red Sea, this will be our leader. Worldwide celebrations will follow sooner than people even believe. Okay.
Yes.
So that's all. We have some timelines. I don't know how Trump plays into those timelines that we talked about, between May 14th and June 6th, but don't be surprised, if he's back much sooner than people believe. And so next slide is 35, but that's this Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, their agenda of the reset is blown up in their face. Because why? It started in 71. Okay. And then from a reawakening standpoint or awakening standpoint, we're going to see, we're going to hear Julie Green state that the eagle has landed, but I don't think she understood why, because now you understand what an eagle is, the eagle molting. So
that eagle molting is so interesting, Bo. There's also that part of the Kim Clement prophecy where he says, they will even say he's not speaking enough. And it really has felt like Trump has not said much in this last year and a half. He's been in his hideaway, and that part never made sense when the first 4 years of Trump, he talked all the time. It never made sense that he would not speak enough, but now it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Wow. And I love this World Economic Forum. I had never heard of this guy until 1 or 2 years ago, but this really shows you what a long time frame these people have and how they plot and plan this stuff out. To have started that back in 1971, and I like to think I stay up on the news. I never heard of this guy before. Incredible.
Yeah. And then he's actually out there. Clay does a great job. It's like Klaus Schwab's actually calling out, he calls out Trudeau. He references all these names of people that actually work for him. It's like crazy. He just announces it. It's insane. Of all these politicians, everybody that works for him, it's the whole thing's wild.
Well, I think they've gotten away with it for so long that I really do think the arrogance, and they think they have won. They think it's over. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible, Bo. This is, I told you, I hope everyone's enjoying this as much as I am, because I told you when we started, there are some amazing connections, a lot of stuff that we haven't heard before, and then a lot of stuff that Bo has been telling us for the past year and a half that is all hitting right now. So for everybody who's wondering, when's it happening, what's happening, you're in it. It's happening right now. And this May 14th to June 6th period is big, and that's only a week away. So very excited. Bo, what about, so we talked about inflation, and you're saying that's only going to get much, much worse. And that's a problem. That's gas in people's cars. That's food on dinner tables. You're talking about a stock market collapse this year. I know you always talk about God's money, gold and silver. And then I asked people today on Telegram, I said, Bo's coming on my show. What do you want me to ask him? And it was gold and silver and cryptocurrencies. So people want to know, what should they be doing? And I know you're not a financial advisor, but I know you like to at least give some ideas. So I'll turn it over to you. What do you want to say about gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies?
Well, the best place to start would be Haggai 2:8. The silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord. Okay. So if you want to hedge against what's about to happen, the greatest hedge is God's money, gold and silver. What are they? You know, they're biblical, the God's money, but they're also a hedge or a bet against the government. You know, you're basically betting that they've been lying to you. It's an insurance policy. Okay, so if you think what we're saying is true, maybe you need a financial insurance policy. If you think what we're talking about is crazy, then I think you don't need to do anything, right? But if you think that what we're talking about makes a lot of sense, then an insurance policy against what the governments have done would be gold and silver. And then we can talk about cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are the means of transacting that's about to happen here into the future, because people will need to send money to other countries to pay for things. And the easiest way to do that in the near term here and into the future will be cryptocurrencies. So there's several thousand of them. 90% are probably going to go to junk and zero, but there's going to be a good handful of them that are going to do extremely, extremely well. Why? The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. The wealth transfer is not only going to go into gold and silver, it's going to go into Bitcoin and some of the very good alternate coins. So that's what's coming. In terms of cycle movement, what I can say about cryptocurrencies is this, okay? We've been waiting for Bitcoin to go up a long time. So it's been going up and down, but basically they are manipulating, they're throwing the kitchen sink and everything they have at Bitcoin and the alternate coins are now to hold them down, because they can't have them go up. If they went up, then the dollar basically has little to no value. So they know that. So they're trying to do everything they can do to push the price of the dollar up and hold cryptocurrencies down from exploding. So all I can say about cryptocurrencies is this. There's two moves coming on cryptocurrencies. And I'm not going to get into the details of it because it's for my subscribers. I don't want to say too much. But there's one move that's coming very soon. It's going to be very, very, very powerful for Bitcoin and the alternate coins. And then shortly thereafter, it's going to go in the exact opposite direction. And the reason for that is because of this extreme amount of manipulation that's going on. It's going to be very powerful one way and then very powerful in the opposite way. And it's all going to be related to this coming stock market crash. So very, very dramatic moves are coming for the cryptocurrencies, both Bitcoin and some of the alternate coins. So very dramatic moves are coming. And that's what I can say. May is going to be awesome. It's going to be historic and extremely dramatic for those who are involved in the cryptocurrency. So that's what I can say. Those of that are interested in Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency cycles, we offer that for our subscribers. But I'm just telling you, May into June, and it's going to relate to everything we talked about here in the presentation.
No, that's great, Bo. And so the critical time period is critical for everything. This whole thing goes at once, is what I'm hearing you say. So, and we really respect that too. We appreciate your time. You always spend over an hour with us. It's incredible time you could be spending with your family, and you choose to spend it with us. You put together 136-page incredible presentation PDF that people can download for free. So we understand that you do have paying subscribers for your newsletter. They value what you put out, and I'm one of those. I get it and I love it. And so we do want to be respectful of those people. And so if you want the exact details, Bo's not hiding it. He just wants to be fair to everybody. So, and in fact, he always does this, and it's really nice. He gives you a 50% discount if you want to see what he's which way that move is and when he thinks it's coming. You can sign up. You can go right here to slide 36. It's right in the presentation. It's gold2020forecast.com. You go in there. He'll give it to you for 50% off. That's a 14-day trial. Get in there. You're going to get, Bo usually sends updates every 2 or 3 days. So you're going to get several updates in your email inbox. And then the cool thing that I really like is you've got all the past issues in there. So you can go back and read them and then see what happened and just find out how accurate it's been. I think last time we talked, Bo, you were like 15 out of 16 called them just directly on the exact days that they turned. So, but that's all in there. You can verify that for yourself. You go in, there's going to be a box where you can put a discount code. You put WLT49 and you'll get it for 50% off. And if you get in there and you read everything and read the back issues and you want to cancel after 14 days, you can just cancel. So, but if you like it, I've been a subscriber for a long time. I like it. And when I don't get to talk to Bo like this on the computer, I get to read his stuff every couple of days, and so that's fantastic. So that's out there for the people that want it. It is really good, and like I said, it's I love looking back at my notes, because when we first started talking, Bo, it was Bitcoin was $14,000, and you've always said too, if you don't want to trade it, just buy it and hold it, and hold along for the ride. So that was good advice when you gave it to us back in 2020, and probably will be for the future, I would guess. But anything else you want to say on that, Bo?
No, that's about it. I think just historic, biblical. I keep saying historic, but more, it's just biblical. Biblical things are coming. This is going to be, we were born to see. We're born to be here to see these incredible things about to happen on the earth. And so as incredibly wild this Roe v. Wade information that just came out, that's the magnitude and the power of that is mind-boggling, because this is what they fought for forever to not have overturned, right? And it looks like it's it's going to happen, period. They just haven't fully announced it yet, but this is going to happen. And then right after that, we're going to see the financial system flip on its head. Just the magnitude of changes that are going to happen in this world, you're never going to forget. And again, going back to the time window of light, okay? So every day got lighter at the winter solstice. It's getting lighter and lighter each day to the summer solstice. And so after June ends, we're getting each day is going to get a little darker. And so the darkness comes on their heads. So by the end of 2022, you won't even recognize where we're at. It's going to be so dramatically different from where it was at the start of 2021.
No, that's a fantastic way to wrap things up. Bo, we want to thank you for your time, and I always like to give you the last word. I think that was a pretty good one, but I love how you always leave people with a message of hope, and you put the focus where it should be. So if you want to leave us with one last thought, what would you tell everybody before the next time we talk?
God's in charge. Watch, pray, and God's in charge. Fear not. God's in complete control.
There we go. That's perfect. Bo, thank you for being on, and we're going to watch those dates. We're going to watch the next 2 weeks, and we will talk to you again soon.